Hi guys, my name is Andile Khumalo. I'm the Chief Executive of Khumalo Co. And I've chosen SDG 8 as my personal choice. It deals with decent work and unemployment. I think that is a big part of our society that we should be solving. I think that if we can get as many people economically active as possible, with dignity of course, I think that goes a long way in solving a lot of social ills. So I'm a big champion of decent work and unemployment. So the structural issues that have led us to this point are quite various, and I guess given the context of South Africa and the history that we come from, you have to go back and ask yourself, how did 80% of the population of South Africa become so disenfranchised when other racial groups are so ahead? And it's obvious, right? Colonization, apartheid, basically the laws that were created over decades, even a century one could argue, are what has led to unemployment being this. And of course, unemployment by far is poor, unemployment by far is black. So the reason why we are here is a very deliberate political and economic system that have left out the majority of the country. I don't think we can tiptoe around that particular issue. But the things that kind of got us here are not the things that are going to get us out of it, right? No policy that favors one particular group over another is now suddenly going to get all South Africans to work together. I think you obviously have to have a policy like Black Economic Empowerment that, yes, does particularly prioritize empowering economically black people, but that's because of the history that we've had. So we're trying to right a wrong here. And hopefully that does have a finite period where we get to a point where we don't have to have specific policy. But getting to the solutions, in my honest opinion, I think that the solutions lie in reading the trends of the world and picking the skills in the industries that are likely to be the most in demand. I don't think that we can use yesterday's kind of strategies to try and fix today, let alone tomorrow's problems. And the space that I'm most passionate about is this digital economy that's becoming such a big part of all of our lives. And less education for me, more skills. How can we impart the skills on our people that allow them to be effective participants in this digital economy? The whole world is getting a lot more connected. Technology is becoming a big driver of our everyday lives. Businesses cannot survive without it. Cybersecurity is a big threat to it. So it's a whole ecosystem that's developing more so than it has ever before. And many people have given it different names: Fourth Industrial Revolution, the digital economy, a connected economy. But what it is that its underlying structure is that of technology. But this technology needs to be conceptualized. This technology needs to be built. This technology needs to be secured. This technology needs to be maintained. It needs to be sold. It needs to be grown. It needs to be driven. It needs to be managed. It needs to be led. So all of these opportunities are there for the world to participate. Our job is to make sure that we upskill our people to be able to kind of participate. So I think that the biggest opportunity we've got is to find a way to impart those skills so that we have a lot more coders, so that we have a lot more programmers, so that we have all these digital skills that the world would inevitably demand. And you can already see pockets of the world that's doing that a lot better. If you look at parts of Eastern Asia, if you look at parts of India, for example, and parts of even Eastern Europe, you can see whole economies have been created basically on people that have got these kind of skills. So I think that's a very unique opportunity. I think it's a window that's open to us now. From that digital kind of skills base, it also lends itself in creating economic activity for entrepreneurs. So not only job seekers, which in itself is a huge opportunity for, but it also gives you the skills to be able to do something and build something of your own. Yes, you need many other kind of skills for you to build a business, and hopefully you can get those. But if you can build a product out of an insight in your community, and you can build a technological solution that can be scaled, imagine what you can do for entrepreneurial activity. So for me, I think that digital skills is a unique opportunity. I think that the days of education for the sake of education are probably numbered. If I had to do university again, I don't know if the things that were popular when I was in university would be as popular now. I think there's certain basic skills you could learn or teach and acquire, and over time you can use them to either kind of be front of the line when it's a job opportunity, or you can actually start building your own businesses, because nowadays property is now intellectual and not necessarily physical. So I think the digital economy presents a huge opportunity, but we got to focus on skills as opposed to mere education. So I don't think that, unemployment in itself is the problem. I think unemployment is the product of the problem. I think the outcome we got is too many South Africans who ought to be economically active, who ought to be employed one way or the other, not employed. And if you talk to economists, they'll then tell you there's another group that have actually given up looking for employment. So I don't think unemployment needs to be seen as this kind of, we have this problem that just kind of came from somewhere and kind of hit us. It's a function of many things, right? And one of the things that it's a function of is economic opportunity in itself. So I think that we need to look at this problem holistically by asking ourselves, what is it about our economy that is not generating enough opportunities for South Africans to participate in, right? So we talk about these hundreds of thousands of grade 12 learners finishing school and want to either enter university or have to get a job because of their family situation. Or we talk about graduates who've done the undergrad, getting out of graduation, and they can't find a job. Hence, we've got this problem of these unemployed graduates. The question we got to ask ourselves is, how is it possible that we are unable to absorb these graduates? Why? What's wrong? What's wrong with our economy? And I think that you will find that the challenge is a structural one, right? So South Africa is what I call an 80-20 economy. 80% of the activity, at least in the private sector, is controlled by 20% of the companies and operators. If you look at all the major industries, you look at financial services, you are seeing a small group of people, 4 or 5 big banks. If you look at the telecommunication players, you're looking at 3 or 4 real big telcos. Everybody else is too tiny. They're controlling 80%. And I can go mining, I can go insurance, I can go telco, I can go technology. All of these big industries are often controlled by a small group of players. That in itself means competition is not as high as it ought to be. If you're not having a competitive economy, what's happening is that you're not having new entrants coming in. They're unable to come in and compete because customers or rather have the view that it's easier to kind of stay with this particular company. There's an old saying in the IT circles that used to mention this one IT company and used to say, you don't get 5 for buying that particular IT company. That's a real thing in an uncompetitive environment. So I think that for you to eventually get to a point of having as many South Africans being gainfully employed or in economic activity, potentially as entrepreneurs, you need to create and sustain a competitive economy, not a concentrated economy. We inherited a very concentrated economy. We got to find a way to break this hold of this big corporate world and as we all know, these really small players. Because you typically find those two extremes anyway, even when it comes to employment. Either people are working for a big fat company or they are operating in an informal sector one way or the other. The middle is missing. We still have this missing middle of a large number of medium-sized businesses that can operate in our economy and be competitive. I think that is probably the problem that can help us resolve kind of the outcome or the product that we are seeing as unemployment. I think entrepreneurship can play a big role in trying to get us out of this environment of not having enough employment for South Africans. I do think there's value in having a plan. I know that the NDP puts entrepreneurship up there and wanting to see at least 90% of employment being created by this sector. But if you're going to have that, one, you gotta, any plan that you have, you gotta make sure that as often as possible you're checking that plan against where the world is moving and the reality. What's the point of having a plan if it loses touch with what's going on in the world, right? So yes, we gotta have a long-term plan. It's the right thing for the country to have an NDP. But I wish every year when Parliament opens, we had a day where the government says, okay, so we've revised our plan and this is where we're now at, right? We thought this is the information we have, so we're going to tweak this and we're going to tweak that. And we do that every year because one, it makes it live. We feel like we're all kind of close to it. We know where we're going, but also it makes it realistic so that it's not based on unrealistic terms. I mean, I even remember, I think 5% growth is an assumption in the NDP. At the time they were writing the NDP, that was a real thing. But we all know we're sub 1%. We'd be lucky if we get to 1% this year alone. Last year we were not there. The year before we were also not there. So what's the point of having a plan that's based on 5%? So the reality is that we have an uncompetitive economy. The reality is that we've got some headwinds that are making it hard for us to do the things we need to do. The reality is we have some political issues that are making it a little bit hard for us to get where we need to do. We gotta remove these hamstrings. We gotta get rid of these hurdles that we've, to a large extent, have created ourselves, so that we give ourselves the best chance of running at this 100 meters at the right time. So I think that we like tiptoeing around the issues a lot, I guess. But the reality is we need to get rid of the impediments, because that then allows everybody to run at full speed. And for entrepreneurs, what we need is policy certainty. We need government to make the environment conducive to operate, conducive to attract investment, conducive to invest into South Africa, because investors like certainty. Sometimes even bad certainty is better than good news with no certainty. So some certainty will be useful, and that in itself will then hopefully bring back business confidence, and all entrepreneurs will be happy to operate in the environment because there's some confidence about where the country is going. So more than anything, I think we need certainty. I think we need to remove the impediments we've created for ourselves, but especially in the political front, but also in finding a way to make our economy a lot more competitive. I think that we as CAs can play a very big role in dealing with decent work and unemployment. Number one, wherever we are probably the custodians of, let's call it, the financial assets of the business. We are the ones that can see red flags early because we are trained that way. We are the ones who need to make sure that we look after the assets of the business. That includes the people that work there. And all the resources that make the companies, the institutions, the municipalities, the government departments, the banks, the insurance businesses, the FMCG companies we all work for and represent. So first, we need to protect what we have. And we need to lead with empathy and lead with the highest level of ethics to make sure that we protect the assets we have as a country. And these assets as a country, of course, are split in all these little places that we all operate in and control. So we gotta think of preservation first. Then we've got to grow. We got to think growth, and we got to do that with the responsibility and the realization that we want growth, we want returns, we want to take whatever capital we have or secured over time and make sure it gives us the best returns with responsibility, because that's what creates work. Economic opportunity is what creates work. So if South African companies are not investing in South Africa, guess what? You're not going to generate enough jobs. If we are taking our capital and we're investing in other countries, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying you're creating employment potentially in those companies. You're potentially not creating employment here. So as we go forth and want to conquer for financial returns, we need to also think as responsible human beings and as patriotic South Africans, to what extent are we also creating employment for other South Africans? So I would say that as business leaders who hold this designation, as business leaders who are respected because of the CA designation, let us also play our role in making sure that we're making the decisions that are pro-South Africa, that help support our own society, because we won't have a country to live in if this continues. How long do you think it will take for people that are being left out of economic opportunity to see the people that are in economic opportunity and realize that, hold on, maybe there's another way for us to get those opportunities and those assets and those sources of income, which is not likely to be a legal way of doing so. So it's in our interest, those of us that are in positions of power, to make sure that the cake is spread, that everybody gets a piece of it, because that way you have a normal society. Otherwise, we're all sitting on a ticking time.